I apologize to everybody for the mix-up with the go to meeting. That was a crazy thing. I wound up. I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but it transposed every single one of the registrations to 9 a.m. So I had to go back through and change all those. So I apologize for the mix-up. I'm glad that we have folks here, and I will absolutely, hang on a second, this isn't even the right presentation, just to make sure I'm doing everything whacked up today. One sec. There we go. That looks better. Better colors. Anyhow, welcome. My apologies for being kind of wacky today. It was just a strange thing that I found this morning when I looked at my schedule, and things were not as I anticipated. So I apologize for that. Everything's been set back to 11 a.m. So we don't know how many folks are going to join us for this particular one, but we really appreciate you coming on board. This is our regularly scheduled time. So welcome back, and I look forward to doing some things a little different than even we did at 9 o'clock. So first off, real quick, some housekeeping. If you notice on the right-hand side, you have the ability to ask questions and chat. You can raise your hand. In fact, we're going to ask some questions specifically today to see if we have any folks that need something particular with their RFP process. But I definitely want to make sure you know about that. A little bit about ISI Federal. We are, here's some of our clients. We're generally in small to mid-size company range. Some of the big ones like Northrop or Coastal, they're kind of behemoths. But besides that, most of our clients wind up being in the small and medium-sized business range. 5 to 50 million is usually where we land. We bridge the gap for small businesses so that they compete in the federal space for opportunities. You know that there's a lot of folks that are playing in the space, and a lot of that makes it challenging for new folks to get involved or to expand, because there's some heavy hitters out there. And in fact, we serve 3 primary client needs. One, we help them understand the market. Second, we help them kind of plan and get ready and prepare to go out after that market. And third, we help apply the resources. This is one of the key things that you need to be able to do in applying the resources so that you can go out after that business. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the nuances and some of the myths that are out there about how those things work. But some of those things that we do, if you're kind of do-it-yourselfers and you're here so that you can learn how to do it yourself, we can help you do that a little bit more. We're doing research and kind of directing your path so that you know what's happening, because if you do what everybody else does, you're probably going to get the same results that they do, which is not very good. Second, we can manage your team if you need us to. In fact, we have several different clients that we're managing their team and training them as they do the follow-ups and making sure that they're doing the right things the right way with the right people. And we can also assist with that, doing the grunt work, making the phone calls, doing the follow-ups, making sure that your marketing material is out there in front of the people that need to know as they're making decisions. And then finally, we have turnkey, feet on the street. We handle all of your business development needs in the federal space. It's akin to hiring somebody full-time, actually hiring a team full-time. So those are the kind of things that we operate with and we can help you with. A special congratulations to Link Services for their joining the ranks of the Inc. 500. Everybody knows that that's a pretty significant milestone there, and I'm real proud of what we've done for them, both in the private sector and the public sector, and their successes there. So I want to bring attention to that. Today we have a special guest. Jamie Zell is with us from GSAproposal.com. Jamie, why don't you say hi?
Well, hi, Dave. It's good to be here, and always good to be able to attend your webinar sessions. They're very informative, and you always do a great job really unveiling the layers that are involved in not only getting into the federal market space, but more importantly, the success of winning business. And it's always nice to sit in on your webinars.
Well, we appreciate it. Everything. If you don't have a GSA schedule, I'm going to do a shameless plug before you even know that I'm going to do them, and that is that Jamie's group helps with our customers with what they do almost exclusively, and we really appreciate all that they do for us, because we really don't like doing it. We want to go out after the business and all the hoops and the pieces that are involved in getting getting involved in that is really right up their alley, and we really appreciate them very much. A couple of other guests that may pop in today. Andy Powell is a senior partner with Halts, Boozes, and Powell. We work together. They handle the compliance thing. Another thing that I don't want to deal with is compliance. And Andy's really a specialist in the federal space, and he can help direct your paths. And if your CPA doesn't understand that, we highly recommend that you reach out to Andy and his team, because the federal government's a little bit different than others. The other that may pop in is Carl Dixon. He's the founder of CapturePlanning.com. We're going to be talking a lot about RFPs. I was hoping he could make it, but he had a client schedule conflict with this particular webinar, so he may be able to pop in, but I highly recommend that you check out CapturePlanning.com. A lot of free stuff out there. Prop Library is there as well. That is a place where you can gain understanding of how to respond to RFPs and effectively improve your processes so that you act like the big boys when you're doing it, and improve your capture rate, especially on the RFPs. So real quick, what you should expect from this webinar is we're going to fire hose you with a whole bunch of information, and we're going to make sure that you're probably choking on it, but we don't follow the pack. And this is kind of a reference to the Purple Cow. If you haven't read that book, that's a great book. It's being different out there and making sure that somebody's paying attention to what you're doing, and that's exactly what we do. We don't usually follow the traditional path, and we'll talk about some of those as well. We kind of work leading towards finding ways to do things faster and easier, to be able to get your information out there, to be able to build those relationships quicker, and to help your company get to the place where it needs to be in the federal cycle. Doesn't make it fast, easier, cheap in any stretch, but being able to understand how those things work. And we will give you help where you need it, and we're going to preface that by saying not necessarily where you think you need it. Because the advice that we give and the things that we find is not necessarily what you're normally going to hear, and we want to make sure you get the straight dose. The other thing is shameless plugs, and that goes for what we did with Jamie already and the other folks that we know, and also for us, because this is a free webinar, and we do have some things that we can turn you on to here that can help your business get to where it goes, where you want to go. So why are we here today? I did a little summary, and 70% of the folks that are here because they need business development help, and they need help finding the people that are responsible for making the decisions. Those are the things that are most important to them. Some need RFP help, and we'll talk a little bit about that, because all of this is kind of wrapped into that if you're looking to improve your RFP response rate and making sure that you're responding to winnable opportunities, or high probability opportunities at least. So that's why most of you are here today, and if there's anything else that you'd like to talk about, I absolutely want to hear about it, and I don't want to ignore those things, but that's the primary focus of what we found as we looked at the folks that are here today. So we want to make sure that we meet those objectives. And the way we're going to do that today is we're going to talk about getting smart about the marketplace. What's happening out there in the federal space, specifically as it applies to you and your company? And how can you get ahead of the RFP process? Everybody here knows that FBO, Fed Biz Ops, is too late. If you're getting into the RFP process, being a respondent and being reactive, then you're going to wind up in the same boat every single time. And so you may improve your ratios a little bit, but this is a way to be able to position your company so that you can win. At 9 o'clock, at the other webinar that I wasn't supposed to have, we had several people that commented on their ability to be able to effectively influence the RFP process, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, and hopefully we have some more here today. So real quick about what is happening out there, is specifically for the folks that are here on this call, as well as everybody else that has gotten GSA schedules or 8As, and that is that most companies fail, even after they do all the work. And Jamie, tell me about the work that's involved in a GSA schedule so we know.
Well, when you go after getting a GSA schedule, or also known as a GSA contract, and it means the same thing. Many clients are out there trying to win federal business, and they come up against this as a stopping point where the buyer says, what you are offering looks good, give me your GSA contract number, we'll get this on order. When they don't have that, they start backpedaling and are looking for a way to get that accolade done, to get their GSA contract. And what happens is it goes into a two-step process. For starters, we We build a master set of documentation about your company, about your offering, be it either products and or services. And then once it's complete and ready to go, that master set of documentation goes up to the GSA procurement officer, who they call a PCO. From there, we play the waiting game, which everybody has to go through that. That's part of the process, waiting for the PCO to pull up your proposal. On the back side of that, then, we have to satisfy the PCO. Any questions, clarifications that they want to have taken care of, and once the PCO is satisfied, then your GSA contract number gets awarded. Comes directly back to you, and after the fact, we go out to gsaadvantage.gov and upload your offering there, and then the PCO will check that to make sure it matches what they've just approved, and then they turn it on from the inside, making you visible on GSA Advantage, which is like their modern version of Amazon, where they can click to buy products and services and also find out about you, and only companies that have their GSA schedule can be on GSA Advantage. So it's a multi-step process to get there. It's a little bit of a journey, but we get there every time, and it's an adventure worth taking on, because it allows you to lead with a position of strength by having your GSA schedule, even if they're not requiring it as you look for business in the federal government.
And when you get that GSA schedule, all the money just falls from the sky, right?
Not exactly. It doesn't start raining coins from the sky. It's from there. Then the most important part starts after that, and that is where you have to go out and integrate yourself and get yourself into the marketplace using resources like what Dave brings to the table, and also build, very importantly, the relationships that mean new business today and repeat business in the future.
Exactly. And one of the things there is that if you don't have a GSA schedule is most likely the easiest vehicle that you can get. And even so, it takes several months, often 4, 6, 8 months to be able to complete, sometimes up to a year, depending on how complex it is. But like Jamie said, his group, gsaproposal.com, gets that done, and they've never missed getting one. So that's why we always suggest that you talk with Jamie, because first of all, we don't do it, and secondly, they do it really well. And even after that, here's the problem. Most of the GSA schedule holders are going to fail. After they do all the work, they're going to fail, and they're going to lose their schedule because 50% don't get $1 and 30% don't reach the $25,000 minimum. I'm not suggesting that you don't do it. I suggest you really do it, because it's a really good asset for you. However, that can't be where you stop. The other thing is, this also applies to 8As, service disabled, women-owned, the whole 9. Every one of those categories, also, most of those fail. 5 of the 9,000 8As not get a dime. And if you think that it takes time to get a GSA schedule, an 8A is like a full proctology exam, and you absolutely go through that for, it's usually a year, maybe 2 years to be able to get that. And there are ways to do that. A lot of things have changed, and one of the reasons why I really like what Andy does for us is that they know how to get you set up to get your 8A if you don't have one. And it's changed. It's not the same as it used to be. All the parameters for 8A are way more inclusive now of folks, and there's a lot more flexibility for being 8A certified. And we do highly recommend it, because for the first 4 years you can be set aside, and they don't even have to. They can build a set aside for you as an 8A. And for 9 years you have preferred treatment. So the idea is that anything that you can do to be able to set yourself up is very important, and Andy's group can help you do that from the CPA standpoint. They don't actually go get the thing, but they can help you get ready. And then the other thing that happens is most 8As graduate and then disappear, because they're so reliant on their 8A status that once they get into full and open competition, they just can't compete. The cost of this is astounding, anywhere from tens to hundreds of $1,000s, and there's a real good reason for this. The reason why is everybody's looking at this marketplace and saying, oh, if it's $425 billion, there's 2.5 million contracts every year, and a lot of that's supposed to be set aside for small business, and they buy everything all around the world. There's 85,000 buyers and 470 agencies and sub-agencies, and they are the #1 customer in the world. Great, great, great. That's why we're all here. Believe me, that's why we're all here, is because of this. Now, here's why they fail. They don't understand the market. They don't have a plan for the market. They don't dedicate resources, and they don't know how to measure success before the dollars start to come in. And that is really critical in order to be able to get things rolling. What they wind up doing is they say, well, I'll tell you what, let's dip our toe in here. And you know what we're going to do? We're going we have a company. It's really rolling along quite well, even though we've been through some really hard times. We want to expand into the federal space, or we think we do. We see there's a lot of money there, and we can't do it with our ace, because our ace is responsible. Our ace salesperson is responsible for bringing in all the money, and we really don't want to take it away from our steady eddies out there that they're continually bringing the revenue in. So what we're going to do is, Mark over here, he's underperforming, so we're going to give it to him, and he doesn't really know that much about the federal space, but he's got a lot of time because he's not really bringing in business, so we're going to give it to him. And the challenge is they wind up just doing that for a short period of time, and obviously Mark is in a real bad disadvantage because he doesn't understand the market, and he's already not necessarily capable of even doing the sales roles at all. So here they go, they dip their toe in, and then they give up after 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. And it may even be 3 months or 6 months or 9 months after they get their GSA schedule. So they already have done a lot of work, and they still give up. And they've lost all of that investment in money and time, and believe me, it all adds up. And what we want to do is help you get to the place where you're actually winning that business and getting you ahead of the process. So how can you get some of this stuff? How can you shake some of those trees and make some of that money fall into your wheelbarrow? And that's what we're talking about, specifically getting ahead of the RFP by influencing decision makers. Let me ask a question right now. How many of you folks, if you can go to your right-hand side of your screen there, and you can raise your hand or post in a chat or whatever it happens to be, how many of you folks have ever gotten ahead of the RFP process and influenced the RFP? How many of you have done that? Hey, Michael, are you there? Whoa, you there, buddy? Michael Parson, you there? I know you can hear me. I can hear you. Hang on a second. Let's see if Rick has. Let me give Rick up.
I don't know.
Hey, Rick, you there? Michael, you there?
I'm trying to. I think so.
Okay, there you go. Tell us about how you managed to affect an RFP. What happened?
Well, we work on the front side with. We do a lot of military work right now, and from the PTU standpoint, so we're doing a lot of the design work and the front end work on those before they're designed, before the garments are even hitting the RFP.
That's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
you're in the driver's seat.
You're in the driver's seat, and you're actually helping craft the scope. You're actually crafting the requirements, and what are the chances that you're going to be able to win that?
Much higher. You do.
Exactly.
You do a lot of the, if you will, clearing the field, and it does make it easier for people to come behind you if it's something that is not unique to your business.
Exactly. And one of the things, and you can chime in here, Michael. Well, tell us about your company, Michael. What do you do?
We specialize in reflective products. We create high visibility items that can be a part of apparel. So we're a small portion of that, but our whole business is designed around high visibility safety applications for anybody that needs to be seen.
And what's the name of your company?
Safe Reflections.
Safe Reflections.
Yep.
And so this is a classic. So you are actually getting spec'd in just as if you were a product or a service offering that would be part of a construction project, right? You're actually you're part of an apparel project, or something that's a requirement for safety, and you want to make sure that Safe Reflections is input into that scope by name, right? Isn't that the idea?
That is correct. That is correct.
And so that just happens because somebody looks you up on the internet and says, "Hey, I want Safe Reflections," right?
Yeah, no, that doesn't work that way.
No, it usually doesn't work that way.
No, so, we're engaging at the design level with whoever's doing whatever apparel that might be, military and or consumer activewear, whatever it is at the design level, getting our components specified, going through all the due diligence of testing it, making sure it works with whatever apparel or fabric that unique garment has, and then doing our best to stay on the front of that when it goes out for bid.
And that's absolutely right. And the fact of the matter is, this happens all the time. What you're doing is happening all the time. And specifically, and I'll tell you why. Rule number one is, if you didn't influence the scope, somebody else did. If you're thinking about it, if Michael wasn't in there doing what he's doing, somebody else is somehow being injected into that scope. It could have been somebody from 10 or 15 years ago. But somewhere along the line, somebody had influence on that, and they started to build those relationships so that they could do exactly what Michael's talking about doing. And so that's the biggest thing. What we were just talking about there is Michael was talking about the scope itself, the actual requirements as it is needed or laid out for procurement. And it probably still goes out for bid, right, Michael? When that stuff goes out, it is going out for bid, right?
It's still going out for bid, correct.
Right. And so it's very important that Michael is spec'd in so that when it does go out for bid, he's the one that's getting the phone call then from the people that are going to be creating the document, or not documents, the
garment. Yep.
The garments. And then the next thing that happens is then he also has connectivity internally with those organizations. And I would say, I'm going to take a real wild guess, that there's probably just a few of the garment manufacturers that really are playing really strongly within the same space that you are. Is that right?
That is correct. There is a handful. It's not.
There's a handful of them.
Yep.
And it's those handful that will then compete for these things if they know that it's there. And depending on who they are and depending on what position they are in the federal space will depend on whether or not they really know that that is actually coming out or there. So that's one thing. The other way that we start to see influence from competitors is in past performance, where you'll take a look and say, well, not in your instance, Michael, because you're kind of getting there tweaking things before it actually gets to that place. But if you get to a place where it's, all right, whoever does this has had to have made garments for either this agency or somebody in the federal space. That happens a lot too. And that they may have to be in business for a certain amount of time. Or they may have to have certain certifications. They may have to have certain qualifications. They may have, some of the things may need to be made in the United States. Some of the things may need to have, and when you get outside of the garment for a little bit and you start looking at manufacturing process, which applies to that too, they may need to be ISO certified. These are the types of things that you can bake into or have put into or included into the scope of work and then the RFP itself to make sure that you're starting to press away those competitors. You're starting to alienate them. And you'll see that this happens all the time, and we'll show you. The other place is the evaluation formula. It could be just price, right? It could be a quote, and it's a price quote. Or it could be lowest price technically acceptable. If that's the case, that's a little bit different, but because you have to meet certain technical qualifications in order to do it, but it's still very, very, there's no real grading there. There's not a lot of value that's based or baked into that. And that's one of the ways that you'll see the competitors. If they're going to be more expensive, you'll see the evaluation formula say, well, we're going to weight the technical as a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 times more important than price. Then you know that something's happening there where they're looking for something that's of value. You also know that you have the ability to protect your margins because you're up against somebody that has some significant margins and probably some significant overhead. And as a result, then you can see that there's influence from your competition, and you can make a decision whether or not you really want to compete, or, even more importantly, how can you compete better against them with your technical response so that your technical response gets better grades than your competitor who may be the incumbent. It can happen, and it does happen, and your evaluating factor is another way that you can see influence from your competition. So we were already talking a little bit about influencing the scope. We said that. In influencing the grading, you can influence the grading as well to say, okay, you have to have the relationship with the contracting officer to do this, but you may be able to say to them, you can put this out for everybody and their mother. I get it, and I want you to be able to fulfill it. However, I'm just making a suggestion that you may want to do a value-based as opposed to simply lowest price technically acceptable or something. Or if you do a lowest price technically acceptable, make sure that you have something built in there for the requirements of the people that are going to be responding, so that you make sure you have quality people that have experience in this place. Because we've seen a lot of bids that have come in, or that are responses that came out that are just not truthful. And it's really hard to tell when it's lowest price technically acceptable if there's no grading in there. So you may be able to inject that. You could inject that into your questions as well in the questioning phase. So those things can happen. The most important thing, though, is positioning your company with the right people. Because I'm telling you, if Michael did not have relationships with the people that he's talking to, he's not going to get them to put in his reflective gear. Am I right, Michael? You still there?
Yes, you're correct. Yep, you're correct. Yep.
And that's exactly what we're after with the right people, and these are the people that buy. There are also people in Michael's sense that we're going to talk about these folks, and we're going to show you exactly who these buyers are, what they do, how they make decisions, and what they need from you in order for them to be able to prefer you. And Michael, have we ever talked about this before? Just so everybody knows this isn't just baked.
Yeah, no, this is my first experience in this webinar.
So this is the first experience. So Michael and I, we're not. I mean, Jamie, I can go to. I know we've talked a million times. I know his answers, but I don't know Michael's answers. But I do, because I know exactly what he's going to say. Every time I ask a question, I already know his answer, because he already plays in the space, and it's clear. So there's three primary players in small business procurement. I call these decision clusters. There isn't a whole lot that I've developed out there in the federal space, but this is one where I can claim to be mine. And that is that these folks get together, these decision clusters get together, and they're made up of Ed, who happens to be the project manager or the program manager. These are the people that Michael's talking with most of the time. You could have a technical representative, though, that could be involved, too. So you have Jill, who's a technical representative. They go by different names, COTAR, CORE, all kind of different things. Depends on the agency. And then you have the contracting officer. And each one of these are very important. They make up a project that you can compete for. Now, every one of these have different roles, different buying motives, different needs, different ways of making decisions. It's very important to know where they're coming from so you can position yourself appropriately. And I'm going to shift off of Michael for a second. I know that I know Rick's here too, and I know Rick, you're only listening because you don't have a microphone, or you didn't call in or something. So, but Rick is with Caseman, and he manufactures specialty cases. A lot of those are for like flight cases and things like that. So I just want to give him props for that. But I didn't know if I see your question here. I think you were just telling me that you were there. Hold on a second. Let's see where you are before we get into this. Rick says we won one because we designed the product same as the second, but the second we were drastically undercut in price. Ooh, that's one that you can see. You're going to see here, where you can be drastically undercut in price after you design it. You already made it, and then it got out there, and somebody else stole your lunch. And that happens. It's happened. Oh my goodness, it's happened to me too. So, so each one of these folks have different buying motives. The program manager, the project manager, is responsible for initiatives. Green is huge right now. These are the types of things that you're going to see. Cloud computing, security of any kind is very important. IT. Physical security still. Cost cutting and savings you'll see out there, double-edged sword, because they want to maintain their budget. You could have political initiatives. You got huge political initiatives now that are coming into full swing with the healthcare changes that are happening. They are responsible for finding new ideas and new technology, and they are looking for better stuff, better reflective gear, better protection gear, better everything. Cheaper, faster, better, right? They are the folks that are out there looking for them. They are influenceable by their scope, the requirements that they're laying out. You can do that with your capabilities, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But these are the types of things that you can help them formulate that and have influence on it. Their job is to get the job done right, and they want to tie. And the best thing to do for you is to tie them into those initiatives that are important to them. because this helps them look good to their senior people and the agency, maybe even get accolades from all of the federal government or even the public as a result of their doing their job and finding these new things that are better. And if oh, by the way, they wind up saving lives because they have safety material that's in there, that could be a core buying motive for somebody like this. It's better reflective gear, very much like Michael was talking about. The technical representative, it plays a different role. The PM may still be the technical representative, so you might have 2 people instead of 3, depending on the size of the procurement. If you get really large, you're going to have much larger, many more people involved. But they're busy. They usually report to the PM, but they bridge the gap between the project manager and the contracting officer. These people are generally risk averse. They don't really necessarily want to see new things. They want something that's safe because they don't want to press anything. Usually, yeah, every once in a while you find people that break the mold, which is great, and you just treat them accordingly. But they assist in assembling the technical requirements, and they say, okay, does it really make sense to have safe reflections called out in this because they have a superior reflective product and it happens to be more adhesive or it happens to be easier to attach to garments or whatever it happens to be? What is it that we can do? What is it that we need to make this? And also, what are the standards? And are we exceeding those standards in the federal space? To identify similar purchases and make sure that they're included in how those things worked in the similar purchases. Certifications, love to drive the certifications to keep the competitors at bay. And it helps the government too, because it's helping them say, hey, these guys are really qualified to be able to do what they do. And here are their requirements. So they assist in the mandatory requirements assembly with the FAR, Federal Acquisition regulations, and your job is to help them look good. So this is a core human piece, right? This is nothing new. Helping people look good is always a good thing anyway. But if you help them look good and make them feel of value, that's very important. This is especially true for contracting officers. Contracting officers are busy. They're often dealing with hundreds and hundreds of different procurements at one time. They will not teach you how to do business with them. They're looking for, they don't like a whole lot of risk. In fact, they don't like any risk. So they want to make sure that you have the ability to do what you can do. But not just that. It's that you need to be able to help them move that paper. This is not to diminish what they do. They are experts in moving paper. They're not experts in reflective coatings. They're not, or reflective gear. They don't care. They don't care about you, Michael. It's no offense intended, but the question is, how can they buy from you? They're not going to buy directly from you, likely. So how can they buy from those major folks that are making that clothing and that material, putting that stuff together? How can they buy from them? They're responsible for figuring out the purchasing mechanism. Is it going to go out to RFP for full and open? Is it going to be sole sourced? Is it going to be just competed between GSA schedule holders? Happens a lot. There can be 3 GSA schedule holders, so they compete it to that. And that, guess what? Your contracting officer doesn't want 50 RFP responses any more than you want 50 competitors. They want to be able to get this fulfilled quickly, and they want it to be easy on them. And 50 responses is not easy on them. They often administer the contract post-award, not necessarily. And when you get to the bottom line, easy is good, and make them feel of value. Very, very important. A lot of times, the contracting officers are not getting the kind of respect that they feel they deserve. And believe me, they're spending millions and millions of dollars on what you sell. So you might as well get to know them and treat them really nice. And you can't take them out to dinner. You can't send them on a cruise. You can't do any of those things. So the best way that you can affect them is personally. Personally tell them that, hey, I wouldn't want your job. I'd shoot myself in the head because I could not deal with the kind of regulations and everything that you do every day. Great ways to be able to build that kind of rapport. Any questions about those folks before we move on? Let's see. How do we find those folks? Yep. All right, Sarah, I'll get to that. I will absolutely get to that in a few minutes. Thanks for the setup. I appreciate it. And let's see. Nothing else really about those. So that's pretty much understood from the folks that are out there. So who has influence? We know that the administrator has influence, and believe me, top-down selling works in the federal government just like it does in the private sector. Selling the veto, the very important top officer, whatever you happen to call it, top-down, whatever, it works. And certainly being able to get to know senior-level people is always a good idea. I recommend stalking. If you know that they're going to be someplace, then make sure that you're there with them, introducing yourself and making sure that you hand them a card and then follow up with them. Always a good idea to have brass, and it can be done. By the way, I was telling the story before that I was down at Quantico a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't met a whole lot of people that were down there. Didn't have a whole lot of influence, but I did have a couple of meetings. And while I was there between meetings, I had my team look up who the commander was, and he was a relatively new commander. So I just decided to stop in on him. And guess what? I had 5 minutes with the commander, all because I picked up the phone and asked for the good colonel, and his secretary said, I said, is good colonel around? And she said, yeah, he's with somebody. I said, well, I'll swing by. It'd be good to stop in. So I stopped in, had 5 minutes with the commanding officer, and I got a referral to some senior people outside of that. So that's exactly how it happens in getting those referrals and having the guts to be able to do those things, because most people won't. I was outside, and there was three Marines that were waiting to see him, and they were sweating bullets because he's the commander. But to me, I don't have anything to lose, and as a result, I started to build those relationships. So top-down works. Yeah, also your project managers and program managers, very much in what Michael was saying, and the people that are involved in his decision, getting in there ahead of the time. And then your contracting officers and your technical representatives. Those are the people of influence. Now, we're going to concentrate on the contracting officer for today because there's a few things that I want you to know about contracting officers. First of all, it's the influence of contracting officers, and that is that the smaller the opportunity, the smaller the dollar spend, the more influence the contracting officer has. Now, I'm not just talking about micro purchases, although those are really great because you get them and they're on credit card and you can do those up to $3,000. They can crank them out. And they don't have to do anything. You don't have to have a GSA schedule, you don't have to have anything. You might have one that reflects your prices and it'll help you get in, but not necessarily. If you have stuff that goes for less than $3,000 or can package it such, then that's one way that you can get business quicker and also get paid faster because it's done by credit card. The other is this sweet spot in the middle for small businesses. Up to about $750,000, these folks really have a lot more influence. Once you get to, really up in the $25, $50, $100 million, your contracting officers have a harder time with it, and you'll see in a minute. But that goes to the big business, mid-business, and big businesses and small business teams when you start getting into the big dollars. But you have political exposure, and that's what makes it more challenging for contracting officers because they're the ones that are going to get toted in front of Congress if they make a mistake on a huge acquisition. So that's one of the reasons why this happens. And that's why we like to spend our time flying under the radar under that about 750, maybe $1 million, maybe $1.5 million, depending on what you do. But generally speaking, it's on the smaller end of those, especially when we're trying to grow into new markets or start into the federal market new. So as we look at this, we really want to know who are these people? How can I get to these people? How can I figure out who these people are? And we're going to talk about that right now. We talk about that, getting smart about the market, identifying your market, identifying your competition, and let the market determine your buyers. This is directly contrary to what you're going to find from the SBA, OSBOOs, whatever you want to call them, any of the advisors out there that are federally based. They have a system for you. They have a system where they're going to put you in. They say, well, if you're new, we want you to do this, and they tell you, go find an agency, go concentrate on that agency, and then work on that agency. The problem is, if you know about that agency and you know about those people in there, chances are your competitors are already there, they're already well formulated, and you can't get in very easily. Now, you can still get in. I wouldn't ignore that agency, but don't put all your eggs in that basket, because if you put all your eggs in that basket and you find out that you can't really compete well in that agency, you're in trouble. Where there's a whole bunch of other agencies that you may be able to compete very well for. So that's one of the things that we like to stress, is let the market determine who your buyers are. Specifically, let the market tell us what is happening out there. And here, this happens to be IT security. So, nothing like $9.4 billion of spend in IT security, right? And this is over the course of a year. It happened to be a year or so. It was over a year ago. But even so, same kind of spend. It's crazy money that's being spent in IT services and IT security specifically. So if we take a look at the market segment, $9.4 billion, here we have folks like the CSC, Computer Sciences Corporation. If Computer Sciences Corporation did $250 million in federal work in IT security alone, that's not just CSC. CSC is billions every year. So just in IT security, that's probably not the place that you're going to want to go spend your time competing with folks like that. At least not today. 5 years from now, set yourself up. Get your track record, and maybe you can compete with CSC, especially if you do it right. And that's where we start to take a look at some other places. What is your sweet spot? Again, I say take a look at stuff that's flying under the radar. CSC has a threshold. They're not even going to pay any attention to something that's $500,000, where for small businesses, that's good work. So here we have a couple of examples. One, if we flip this and we look at the #1 contractor in IT security space, we have somebody named BPSI. Do you even know who they are? Well, probably not, because they did almost $35 million in a year, and they have one customer, it's the Army. And the whole reason they were there is because they were already there, and they were already doing work in another space, and somebody said, can you do? And the answer is, well, sure, we'll figure that out, especially if you have somebody who's a champion on the inside. So they expanded in the Army, and this is their take for IT. And now we can take a look at some of the other ones. I love these. 174 contracts for $5.9 million. Beautiful. 150 for 2.2 or 2.3 million. These are the ones that we really want to concentrate on. Notice the dollar amounts, 166,000 being that, and 275 being the largest contracts that were there. All the rest of those are bite-sized, well under the radar, booking business of 5.9 and $2.3 million. Gotta like that. And these are the ones that are playing in those sweet spots, understand their sweet spots, and know how to capitalize on that. And let's talk about the agencies they're working for, where you have CMS, Center for Medicare, Medicaid, a lot of change going on there, a lot of stuff, good stuff happening there. They're big boys. What about some of the smaller ones? Food and Nutrition Service, Maritime Administration, Millennium Challenge Corporation. Did you guys even know what that was? Millennium Challenge Corporation, and yet $2.1 million in IT security spend. Office of Thrift Supervision, and we all know the U.S. Marshal Service primarily because of the movies. But if you take a look at these are ones that maybe don't have a whole lot of exposure to the big boys, especially if you're talking about the 19 contracts for $1 million instead of one contract for $1 million. These are the places where you can certainly play. The largest contract is $300,000. Again, finding those that are better for you. Here's where we also stress is to understand the competition. Let's take a look at what the competitors are. You would not believe in IT services that $7.7 billion, 82% of the contracts had less than 5 competitors. How can that possibly be? The number of, and 84% of the total contract volume. So if you think about the number of contracts that are out there that are not even out there for public inspection and public bid, how does that happen? Who is responsible for that? That's a great question. And these people are the people that are responsible. Don Wheatley, $4.5 million. Matthew Butcher, responsible for $1.7 million. These are the kind of people that you've got to know if you want to win in that space. And these are the people that you need to build those relationships with. So we get smart about that. We've identified a lot of things in there. Now, let's talk about the competition, your specific competition. What if you knew who was buying from your primary competitors in the federal space? Check out Brenda. $387,000. If something comes out from DHS and it has your primary competitor, you know that they're in that account, what are the chances that that's going to go to, if it comes out with Brenda's name on it, that it's going to go out for your competition? Chances are very good. So you can either say, hey, they're too baked into it, they have too good of a relationship, we're not even going to bother, or you can say, I think we can beat them. We can beat them with our technical response. Maybe they got lazy. Maybe they decided that they were going to just rest on their laurels, and now you have access to Brenda. You know who she is. You can certainly start to build relationship and say, hey, I know that you do a lot of work in this space, and I'd like to be first choice for second place. Give us a shot. Give us a chance on something. Maybe your competitor is going to screw up somewhere. Maybe they did. Maybe they already have. And maybe that account is at risk for them, and they don't even know it. So these are the places where you can play. Again, looking at some of the agencies, Bureau of Land Management, not one of the largest ones, but we also have the phone numbers for all these folks and their email addresses. That's what we do. We do the research on who's buying, what you sell, and then we figure out who those people are. We cross-reference it with the contracts that are done along with your competitors, and we figure out how to reach them. So that's, if you're doing that and you say, hey, I know there's a market for my company. I know who's spending the money now. I know who's buying from my competition. The buyers are going to go to who they know. Even if the job is not being done the best way, the chances are it's still going to go to the competition unless they have a viable resource otherwise. And the fact of the matter is, people buy from people they like. You can't get away from it. It's the way that the world turns. It's the way that everybody buys something. And I'm telling you, if they didn't like Michael, they wouldn't be speccing him in on the material and on the clothing. I'm telling you, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't be putting that in. And so people buy from people they like. So the question is, how can you get them to like you? The first thing is work on your value proposition. I would say give the buyers what they need, not necessarily what you sell. It is not, and I know depending on we had another lady earlier, Catherine, who was talking about how she was doing work with resumes in Naples with the Navy, and she was working primarily with one side, but then found out that she had a whole other market in there. But she wasn't selling resumes. She was selling the security for the sailors. That's what she was selling. She was selling security for the sailors and helping the HR person look good, since there was going to be cutbacks. And essentially, there was going to be they're going to need to be developing resumes. And oh, by the way, she does have a GSA schedule, and she's an 8A. And it was because of those two things. They had it set aside for 8A, but you had to have a GSA schedule. So she had to have both of those in order to compete. I wonder where they got the qualifications for her, or they got the requirements for that in the RFP. I wonder. She gave it to them, because there's plenty of people out there, and it was a $200,000 win. Not crazy money, but not bad money either. $200,000, not bad, and she had to spend time in Naples, Italy. Yeah, isn't that terrible? You have to spend the kind of time in Naples. That's terrible. Anyhow, so what do federal buyers need? They need political cover. That goes with your, and then goes to technical cover, pricing cover, and making it easy for them. Your political cover comes from your approach. We kind of did that with top-down, that kind of thing. Your technical cover comes from your proposal and your responses. Your pricing cover comes from a contract vehicle, most likely GSA, always good to have, and you have to give it to them a nice, neat package and say, here you go, I'm making my life easy for you. That's how you win federal buyers' hearts. That's how you get to them. That's how you make sure that you become a value to them, that you have the ability to do that, and you help them fulfill their objectives and their mission according to their buying motives. Any questions about this stuff before we move on? I know we have a lot of folks here, so I don't want to leave anybody out. Pop this up. Okay, we will get to that, Sarah, with the question about how we find those people. I'll show you in just a minute. And that's it for now. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand, or let me check to make sure nobody raised their hand. Or you can post a question and I'll answer it. So with your capabilities, this is one of the ways that you can set yourself apart is how your capabilities is set up. Here's one of the capabilities that we use for Dynamic Computer Corporation. And if you notice, everything on this side has to do with stuff that your contracting officer would want to know about. It has important key contact information, right? Phone numbers. You have your certifications. Ooh, ISO 9001, that's nice. Get to be able to put that in someplace maybe in a few minutes. We'll talk about that. Have your DUNS, your CAGE, so they can find you, and your NAICS code so that it makes sense to them. Contracting vehicles, and reference customers' past performance so that they know they have safety in numbers, they know that you're safe. This tells them that you know how to do business with them. The other thing that we do is we like to have 3 things that you can change anytime you want. You can make this, if they're not into cloud computing and they're into installation configuration, put that in there. Make sure that's one of the 3. The reason we do this is because people can concentrate on 3 things. They can't concentrate on 50, but they can concentrate on 3. And if they concentrate on, they say, well, maybe we do installation configuration or imaging and things like that. Those are the types of things that you can have as secondary, but you lead with one of the 3, and that includes your introductory process. So that deals with your capability statement. The next thing is developing your scope of work. Where do you think the people get the information that they need? They get it from you and me. So what's one of the best ways to do that? Make sure it's included on your capabilities and use the same thing. ISO 9001. It's important, Mr. Customer, that you have somebody that's ISO 9001 certified. The reason being is because you want to make sure they have the quality control in there so that when they're doing this and creating those garments, that they're going to be solid and they're going to have really good manufacturing processes and their internal processes are solid. The other thing that you want to do is this is your 1-page resume. We always recommend that you have a multiple-page resume with sample scopes of work so that you can say, here's what we've done. Here's a sample that was done that is similar to another federal agency. And they may cut and paste that right into their document. Very cool. So that can help them develop their scopes of work. Dedicating resources for the pursuit. Now, we talked about all the pieces that you need in order to be able to get this stuff out there. Now, somebody's got to go knock on those doors. Somebody's got to make the phone calls. Somebody's got to send the emails. Somebody's got to do the follow-up. And somebody's got to make sure that these people are getting touched over and over and over again. It can't just be one shot. They're not looking for somebody to come in and say, hey, what do you got for me right now? What they're looking for is somebody to come in and say, how can you help me? How can we help each other? How can we get to a place where I'm helping you and maybe at some point I get a chance to at least take a look at something? This is where we get into the marketing essentials for 2013. And what we talk about here is regularly $4,500. The pieces that we're going to talk about right now have to deal with the type of information that you need. What we do is we break this stuff down. Hang on one second. In a concise report for your company, and each one of these is tailored. This happens to be tailored for tactical gear. And if you take a look, we're still looking at crazy money, $9.8 billion. Some of those are really large. The average contract is $728,000. That's large, but that includes military armored vehicles and things like that. But there's other apparel and accessories and police protection if you're doing smaller tactical gear. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's involved in that. The reason why we like all of those is that people that are responsible for military armored vehicles and tanks and things like that are probably the same people that are responsible for making sure that the soldiers are protected. Wouldn't you think? If not, they're right next to the person. You can play the Kevin Bacon game or 6 degrees of separation or whatever, and then you're talking to those people. We look for the number of competitors. Again, 78%, less than 5%. I don't know if you can see that or not. Kind of hard to see. Then we start to look at how many contracts per month. When's the best time? Most of the time, it's in September. That's where most of the spending is happening, is in September. So we want to make sure that we're getting to these people so that when they get to the September spend, that they know who to buy from. We deal with challenges and the components in there. We give recommended action steps. But more importantly, along with this is really what's most important, and that gets to the people. The people that are responsible for buying this stuff, whatever you have. And in this instance, this is all electronic as well. We do the research and we supply it to you for your database so that you can import this into your CRM. If you don't have a CRM, you can either ride along ours or we can set one up for you. We can absolutely help you with that as well. But this is sorted by dollar amount, but you can sort it by number of contracts. You can see the largest contract's $439. She's got 12 contracts for $563,000. $563 million. I'm sorry. $439 million was her largest buy. $563 million was spent in tactical gear, and she's with the Navy. So these are the kind of things that you want to see. We have the phone numbers, we have the emails, so that you can do your pursuit. Make sense? So the next thing that we look at, we can take a look at the competition. We flag a few of the competitors so that we know if there's some that are head-to-head. In this instance, Aardvark and Southern Police Equipment, direct competitors to our client. So what we've done is we've separated these, and we looked at tactical vehicle and components like that. We have the number of contracts, all the dollar volumes that are there. Look at this. GM, $1.6 billion. Oshkosh, $1.6 billion. Huge amounts of money spent there. Those are the big guys. You're not going to be able to compete with them. But we also look at the agencies, how much they spend. The NAICS codes, very important. A lot of times, look at this, other apparel accessories. What does that mean? It means everything other than something that's right there. You got police protection. We know we're in the right spot for this. But we also can include some of these. If you don't have these in your record or on your capability statement, a SAM record or CCR, then you can go ahead and include these. Doesn't cost you a dime to include additional NAICS. We also look at PSCs. They're the FSCs or PSCs, both the same thing. They go up against what you have for your contract line item numbers or SINs, and that's how that works. But we look at the time of the year that it happens, and we look at the states in which these things happen. And no real surprise, we have Virginia, we have Maryland, we have D.C., certainly at the top of the list for that. So the most important thing, again, the people, going after these people. And we also have it for the individual competitors to make sure that if this is Southern Police for tactical gear, but it will be your primary competitors so that you can make the decision of whether or not you want to bid against them. So that's kind of the real high-level piece. Again, this was regularly $4,500 for the webinar specials we do for $3,000 today, and we give you the breakdown of the agency spending, all their contacts with the primes, and your competitors' contacts, as well as recommended action steps. We also have a super webinar special, and that goes back with if you're looking for RFP help. You can absolutely go to captureplanning.com, and you can check out these guys, and they charge $2,500 to get into that. You can do both of these for $5,000. So we knocked off another $500 to be able to do both of these together. Highly recommend that you check out Prop Library, and that's part of captureplanning.com. If you go there, you'll see a whole bunch of free stuff dealing with RFPs, a wealth of information. And I'm sorry that Carl, Carl, you didn't make it. I didn't see you come in. So I'm just giving him props for that. Any more questions? We're running up against the edge of the hour, and I want to be respectful of everybody that's here and all the pieces that are involved. So any questions from anybody? Sarah, hopefully that did. I know you don't have the ability to talk either. Michael, you got any more questions or comments about that stuff while I got you turned up?
No, actually very informative. I'll be evaluating how actually to look at your service to see how it makes sense for us to get into different parts of the federal government. So thank you.
You betcha. We appreciate it. I appreciate all that insight and input. And that's Michael's doing the right things the right way with the right people at the right time, and that's what it's all about. And I think and I know that when you follow that same pattern, you will succeed. you will absolutely succeed. So I really appreciate it, Michael. Jamie, you have anything else that you want to say before we jump?
No, any questions at all about the GSA schedule process, certainly feel free to give me a call or hit our website. My number's on there as well. It's gsaproposal.com, and Dave did an excellent job explaining the journey that you need to take into to be able to extrapolate and really go after strategic contacts to make the business happen. Excellent job.
Well, I appreciate it. Checks in the mail. Yeah, we do appreciate it. I can't say anything more about Jamie and his group, certainly, but just feel free. If you need anything else, if you want any other additional information, there was one other thing that I had that I was going to show for resources, but I'll save that for another time. But feel free to reach out to me. My cell phone number is right there, as well as my email, and our team is ready to help you any way we can to be able to help penetrate that and grow into the space. Like you said, Mike, we'll be glad to talk about that for sure. And anybody else that's interested in that type of a thing, we can certainly talk about it at a deeper level. Anything else that you'd like to talk about, please let me know. Any future things, again, this will be at 11 a.m. next month. I already made the changes. They may have even landed in your email box already, but it will be at 11 a.m., not at 9. For the balance of this. We may have a special women-owned small business forum that we're going to be talking about with some of the compliance issues with that and being set up for that. So if you're women-owned, shoot me an email. Let me know if there's anything that you'd like to talk about. But we have some specific things there. And also, if you want to talk about anything otherwise, we love new topics. So have a great, great month. Thanks for joining me. If you need me, catch me. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.